that's all.
They brought their own.
Or American. Everybody else sends out except for her. We can still just use this. And then in
It's
theory,
at the end, yeah.
right, somebody could insist on right to watch this photo. People have been pretty reasonable about that.
Choose your weapon.
Should be able to, yeah. Can you hear us now, Beth?
Yes, I can.
Excellent, thank you. Mason, what would be, finish that and then I'll tell you what's in my head. I just want to tell you before I forget.
Did you send out the board folder, or did,
I did.
I can't,
Did you do that Friday afternoon? I shared it Friday afternoon.
I can't find it.
That was the day the internet was out and working off my phone and wonky.
Meredith, could you read,
I'm sorry?
is there stuff that's in there that wasn't in there as of yesterday? If not, then I don't need it.
I'll reshare it. I don't know. I didn't add anything. I'm not sure when, but the minutes went in sometimes.
I got the minutes.
Yeah.
I didn't see any reports.
One report is in there now. I'm not, we never got the curriculum.
I don't see the report in there. Right.
If it's just a report, then I don't need it.
I just shared the whole folder.
You don't want to read it.
That is fine.
How's that?
Good.
You're just gently.
Everybody and those four.
I don't see the report.
Oh, there it is. You have to refresh. That's what I had to do. Just refresh. Oh, really? It's funny. It's like, timely.
I guess I say this jokingly, but
I'm sorry?
you did it.
I am, yeah, I am muted right now. Yeah, so if I can only say that. If I can say that way, it'll be straight tonight.
You're off to a good start.
Thanks. I don't know why I struggle so much with that. Maybe we need to tie a string to my hand when you see me go, pull it away.
I'm the closest, so that's right. Put it on your pinky and I'll just hug it.
Six o'clock, everybody ready to go? Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Would all who wish join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up is agenda adjustments. There's two in the red line board agenda to add an executive session at the end on 40560 labor negotiations. And there's also adding an item 7B to discuss supervision and evaluation waiver. And I am going to add a third item, a second executive session under MRSA 4056F, confidential records. So I would make a motion to adjust the agenda to add those three items, the two presented plus a second executive session under confidential records. Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion or additional items? No. Okay, we'll go ahead and vote. And I would just note, we have one board member attending remotely. So by law, we have to revert to roll call votes. So we'll start with Beth, your vote on the agenda adjustment.
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
I also vote aye. I know we just changed up the order there, but I think it's easier at some point to match seats. Next up is consideration of the minutes for August 24th. I would make a motion to approve the minutes from August 24th as presented. Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Next up is warrants. I don't have any notes on no warrants to, okay, no warrants to approve this time. Next up is public comment. Floor is open from anybody who would like to comment on really any topic at this point. Go ahead and unmute and speak out if you want. I can't see everybody. Okay, not seeing any public comment. We'll go ahead and move on. Next up is acknowledgements. Beth, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I want to acknowledge the additional levels that our school and district administrators have been dealing with today, and express my gratitude for the communication with the families and the overall community of RSU 26 about tomorrow. Thank you.
Jake?
Nothing at this time.
I don't think I have anything to add this time. Patrick?
Sure. Mirroring what Beth said, but also just I'd like to thank everyone who was involved with setting up the upcoming immunization clinics for influenza. The fact that that's happening at schools, I think, is wonderful. And I really appreciate personally the opportunity to go and get my flu shot at the same time as my young daughter. And the fact that kids can do that right here at school, I think is just wonderful. So thank you to everyone who helped put that together.
Mark?
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Meredith?
I have nothing to add at this time.
Okay.
Good.
Next up, we have reports. We'll start with director's reports. Lisa? Lisa, you want to go ahead with the special services report?
I don't know if she's here, Ben. Is she?
I don't know that she can
I don't
hear
think she's on.
us. Lisa Smith, can you hear us?
She is not.
She is
on.
there.
She's in attendance, but maybe has
All
her
right.
volume down.
We'll go ahead and switch to the curriculum if that's okay, Meredith, and you can start.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So as I am sure you are aware, things are moving at a rapid pace, and there are a number of initiatives happening simultaneously alongside all of the regular business of schools. And this is only going as smoothly as it is in this district because of the incredible work of so many people. And, you know, most of those folks are working hard behind the scenes in a way that doesn't get a lot of attention. But I would just like to use my board report today to highlight some of the ways in which folks are really stepping up and supporting the incredible work that is happening here in RC 26. And the first person to whom I would like to express my gratitude is Shauna Goodall. Shauna has stepped into this new role this year in a way that is unqualified and determined and enthusiastic about achieving many of the goals that we have set for ourselves. Most recently, that work has looked like the gathering and organization of a host of documents requested by Equity Alliance Minnesota. Documents that in districts, live in places sometimes untouched and unrevisited for many years, but that all have a piece of the story to tell. And Shauna has reached near and far in our folders and our policies and our archives to try to offer our audit partners as complete a picture as possible of our reality here in district. And she is doing that alongside, continuing to teach 2 classes, and while also leading our tech integration efforts, and while also leading our Wabanaki Studies work group. And I am very grateful to Shauna for the incredible work that she is doing to support these pieces that the community has identified as really important to our work in schools. I would also like to acknowledge the hard work by folks who have made it possible to lift off our NUIA assessment window in a successful way. We have Richard, Peter, and Deb Bishop at the middle school who have assembled a protocol for test administration that has manifested in, I think, honestly, an administration, a test administration that I'm really jealous of because it goes so well. The students know what to do, the faculty knows what to do, data is gathered immediately upon assessment completion. And I have a lot of admiration for what those folks have been able to do at the middle school and the way in which it supports our understanding of students' needs and student learning. And down at ASA, we have Kristen and Brad Martin, who work so well together to really, a key piece in the past year has been the expansion of our assessment down at ASA. We are assessing every kid in the building with the exception of our pre-K students in an effort to ensure that we have as complete an understanding of their learning trajectory in our buildings as possible. And their assessment has also begun. We as a district are, launching and right at the beginning of the window. And I'm really hopeful that that will allow us to reach every student between now and the end of October when the window closes. We have at the high school an entire faculty that is now engaged in our NEASC reaccreditation work. For those who are unfamiliar with the accreditation, it's an important piece of reflection and goal setting for high schools in particular. For us, we are engaged in a version of this reaccreditation process that is intended to help us identify areas for growth, to help us establish a plan for how we are going to invest in that growth over the next 2 years. And then that work will culminate in another visit 2 years subsequent that will allow us to gauge the degree to which we are working meaningfully toward the achievement of those goals. And at the high school, that is going to mean an investment by every single member of our faculty. And that is, something else that is in addition to the work that you see happening every day. And I just want to express my gratitude to all of the high school faculty for their willingness to invest in this as a meaningful part of our work for students so that we can ensure that what we hope we are doing is what we are actually doing each and every day. And with that, I'm going to conclude my report this evening.
Thanks. Any questions or comments? All right, we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead with Lisa. I think the sound problem's been resolved.
Technical difficulties. You guys started so fast, I didn't even realize I was missing sound. So to start off, I wanted to share that we did have a recent resignation of Cynthia McAleer at EdTech at OMS. She's been a huge support, been with us for a long time. She'll be very much missed. We also had a recent resignation of a new hire, Brittany Johnson. She found a teaching position and was only with us for a few weeks, but we're happy for her with her newfound position. We continue to work really hard to fill the EdTech positions. I did hire Matthew Lewis yesterday. He has 4 years experience. He has a background in art education, but has spent 2 years as an ed tech, and he joined our ASA staff yesterday. So we're excited about that. We have another hire with the start date of 11/1. We're keeping a close eye and trying to be as creative as possible to meet our staffing needs. We've had more students than we had anticipated start school either as kindergarten students or moving into the district that required a significant level of support. So we're still trying to make sure we can cover all needs. And once we have all our hires, we hope to look and be able to ensure that everybody's taken care of. And if not, we'll look at other options after that as far as whether or not we need to move positions or need additional positions. We've had our second round of safety care training. Currently, we've got 29 individuals throughout all 3 buildings that have current certifications, including myself. I finally was safety care trained. Jill Conley is doing a great job setting up these trainings for staff. She's taken over the entire organization of it. She and Emily Francis have both become certified trainers this summer. So we have our staff right here that are able to provide the trainings. We have another training set for recertifications on Friday, so very busy with that. I wanted to report out on social work as it's kind of new to the district still. Currently, we have 38 students that are working with our social workers. We have 7 others in the referral process. We are already at capacity with our new part-time person that we hired with RSU 22. She's already at 20. And because she's a hire and not necessarily going through insurance, we're able to kind of move the kids more quickly into her caseload. So that's why, you know, she's full now, and we have some others on the waiting list, but we're serving more kids than we ever have, and this certainly is needed during this time. We've also had an increase in our need for board certified behavior analyst services. We've been able to meet that need. We've always contracted with Laura Betters, but we've also worked with, I believe it's the Atlantic Behavior Consultation Group. Jed Schwam is the leader of that, but the person who is working with us is Alton, and he's been with us for quite a while and has been in all 3 buildings, and we are definitely he's picking up a lot more students. He's not had any students at ASA previously, but he's picking up some at ASA. He is also devoting some time on Friday to train our new staff with some of the behavioral supports they'll need for our kiddos down there. So excited about that. As part of our corrective action plan, this is just another PD that we have lined up. When we were audited for our special education department was audited last year, they deliver a plan to us basically at the end of August, and we have the year to complete it with different parts happening at different times of the year to complete it. And one of them is to have our staff attend IEP training. So that will be provided. I believe it's happening next week for many of our staff. Some are unable to attend, and for those, I will either provide the training myself, or we will look at recorded trainings that are available through the DOE. But a lot going on. It's a very busy time for us. Any questions?
Anything? No, thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, superintendent report.
So to begin with, I want to just let you know we had a resignation of a support staff member, an admin assistant at the high school. We advertised that position. It's the person, excuse me, that primarily deals with financial bookkeeping, accounts receivable at the high school. And so we advertised that position. It's been filled with an internal candidate. And so now we've advertised for that position. It was another admin assistant in the district. So that's how we're moving forward there. We've had, I just want to kind of, Jason just left, I'm not really here to answer questions, but we've had a number of tech issues over the last week or so. We think it mainly has to do with our virus protection. And just, it seems like that's always a moving target with something they're doing that, you know, is to protect our system, but that it really causes complications on our end. And that came kind of to a head last Friday when we kind of lost everything Friday afternoon about 3 o'clock in the district. Lost connectivity. We didn't lose things. It's just connectivity was completely out. we think that's working toward resolution. It's certainly better this week. I mean, we had 2 schools testing NUIAs, 3 schools testing NUIAs today, and that went off fine with connectivity. So that was a real test to the system, and it worked. So that's something that, you know, the Sophos is something that we've put in a more, I don't know what the right word is, but it's a larger part of our system now than it used to be, just because of all of the ransomware virus attacks that people are seeing. So it's always a balance between protection and efficiency. And I think that we're still trying to find our way with Sophos, how it intersects with our you know, internet provider, because it's always a little bit of a trick to figure out whose problem it is to fix, right? When you have those issues, and we have to kind of sort through that with them. So I think we're heading in the right direction. And I just want to give you an update on what was happening in case you heard about that last week. Meredith mentioned in her report that a bit about the PD Day this Friday. We have, you know, really good things planned, and a component of that I don't think I heard her mention was we're kicking off our staff wellness program Friday. So I think just in time, right? I think everyone's going to need something Friday to just, you know, help people refocus and feel like they have some wellness focus to as needed for themselves. So we look forward to launching that alongside the professional development activities focused on Wabanaki, focused on NEAS, focused on data, all the things we have going on Friday. Recently, I think we'll talk about it a little further down the agenda. Brian and I last week attended a legislative seminar, and we picked up just a lot of really good information, as typically we do in that seminar. And, you know, some of which will be coming to you through policy updates that we'll share with you. Other things, really probably more than policy, just some procedural changes in the district that we have to work through with admin and staff to figure out how we're going to respond to. So we'll be bringing you, you know, various updates on that as things are rolled out. It was an active legislative session last year for education-related bills. As Meredith mentioned, we're really ramping up the DEI work, and in the coming week, a team of our staff are going to be reviewing the survey that will be used early November with students and staff and community. So this is our chance to review it and just comment, feedback, add things, you know, suggest adjustments that might match our school system so that we get the kind of data we need. And I concur with Meredith's accolades to Shauna for her great work to help us do the prep work that's needed for Equity Alliance to have all the information they need for the audit. We're meeting with them weekly to bi-weekly right now just to do check-ins and planning for that. And finally, on just not related to, lots more to come on the agenda, but we submitted our ESSER 3 application recently, so that felt good to have that submitted. And I'm sure we're going to get edit suggestions or requirements. Most people around this are telling me that have done it, that that's what happens when they submit this one. This one seems to have a little more kind of regulatory strings. I think because of where we are in the pandemic, the federal government's had time to kind of catch up with, as they push out money, to have more structures with it that have requirements that you have to fulfill in certain ways, as opposed to the early money that was kind of being pushed out with very little regulatory kind of strings and just deadlines for quick spending. So that's kind of a shift that we're seeing with this newest round of ESSER funds. That's all I have for just the general report, unless you have questions.
Any questions?
I guess I didn't say, and I'll just, you know, I think we're probably going to discuss this as a board later in the executive session, but the email that went out today, obviously, as a district, we're trying to balance the right approach to take in the situation. We talked to our friends in Old Town who's just recently been through this kind of situation and, learn from what their experience was. And we feel like, with our schools being so close together, that our school community is really tightly located here together. So it felt like in the end, we needed to have a district-wide response to the situation today as it unfolded, and we were deciding how to handle it. So one of the activities for Friday and tomorrow for ASA staff, and then Friday, is when we have to do this kind of quick pivot, it's really impossible today for ASA to do a quick pivot to remote unless we deploy devices that just stay at home. So what Kristen's going to work with staff on tomorrow is a take-home folder that will just stay home. And maybe teachers will update it periodically with new materials that just stay at home that will be able to do a quick pivot. And then if we're going to stay in remote, then devices can be sent home and such. But that's the plan with ASA staff tomorrow. And then finishing up on Friday when people can be in the building to actually put together materials and home. So that's what kind of a reflection on today. We had several takeaways today as we were working through this. But the middle school and high school, it's not easy certainly, but there's a lot of background that most of those students and our staff have for this pivot tomorrow. And with ASA, we just felt like it was important to give the staff some time tomorrow to work on that so that we're ready in the event that for whatever reason, we have to potentially pivot in the future like this. So I don't have anything additional to add at this point, but just to say that so that the community can hear that as well.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on to COVID discussion.
I'd like to start with some encouraging news, what I consider to be encouraging news. First of all, the pool testing and vaccination data that I put in the folder, you can see, I'm trying to find that paper in the sec. You can see our pool testing numbers continue to grow. We are certainly slowing down the growth, whereas early there was pretty rapid growth with a ramp up of the program, but we continue to grow each week in that program. So, and it's going really well. I think changing to Tuesdays last week caused our results to be a little slower in coming because it's a more common day that people are doing it. But I think we'll see if that settles into a pattern like that. But I think moving to Tuesday was a nice change, and I saw something today to just confirm that people that are going on Mondays can't just switch to Tuesday. You have to just give up a week if you're on Monday test day. So that was part of our thinking in selecting Tuesday because there's fewer Tuesday holidays. So I think it's going to work well, and I'm encouraged with the numbers. And when we had the cases yesterday, I think it just continues to reinforce the value, particularly to high school kids, that sometimes the thing that can get them to decide to do something like this is if they lose sports or their student activity, and that's an avenue to help students make a decision to join pool testing. So we continue to see growth. After every email we send out about new cases, we see maybe a little spike each time in the pool testing sign up.
Meredith, can I ask you a question on the pool testing?
Sure.
Do we do it in the morning, is that correct?
We do it, it's all wrapped up by one. At the middle school and high school, it's first and second period respectively, and at ACE, it's throughout the morning and finishes up by 1.
So at the high school, for kids who go to UTC in the morning,
They do it when they get back.
So they do have the option to participate?
They do,
Okay.
yeah. Ms. Runco keeps one pool for UTC morning students, and we have a few students who are taking classes at university.
Okay.
So as they come in, they come see her and they're in a pool together.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure they did. Thank you.
Sure. And the other piece of good news, our vaccination rates continue to climb. You can kind of see the progression over time from the first time I reported this to you. Oh, I forgot to change the date. Sorry. That date on that last column was yesterday. So that's 10, 10, 4. Was it last week? I think it was yesterday. And then our staff rate, you know, it's pretty steady, but it's climbing a little as we continue to get some more data in. So that's one piece of good information. The other piece of encouraging information is just our case rate. So we, I think, are in our 5th week of school. And over the last 2 weeks, we've had 6 cases compared to over the first 3 weeks, we had 23 cases. So I mean, it's felt like, to me, just not even looking at the numbers, that things have slowed down. Certainly yesterday didn't feel that way, but prior to yesterday, it certainly has felt that way. So, you know, I don't think it's enough to suggest a trend necessarily, but or something that has staying power, but it feels like things have slowed down for us, and certainly the pooled testing results are confirming for us that, you know, our case rate is perhaps reflective of the fact that the COVID prevalence is somewhat diminished in our district. So I'm encouraged by those numbers, but you know, like last year, I just feel like we can't let our guard down. We have to continue to do the things that we know are important to do for mitigation efforts. So I think the cases have certainly, like this week, they were all at the middle and high school, nothing at ASA, but early on they were, you know, mostly at ASA. So things have just changed over time, but certainly the feeling of them slowing down is what I see in these numbers. The vaccine clinics, there was one scheduled tomorrow for a COVID clinic tomorrow. It was a small number who had responded to that, but it was enough that PCHC said, yes, sure, we'll come do those. So we'll have to reschedule that. And then we did the interest survey for the age 5 through 11 clinic, and we got really great response on that, so that Karen can now begin to plan with PCHC, you know, pending that approval. And then as Patrick mentioned, the flu vaccine clinic is next week.
You said we got a great response on the 5 through 11. Do you know, like, the percentage of students who responded that there would be interest?
I don't know the percentage. Last I looked, it was in
Roughly.
the 60s who responded, like 60 something responses so far.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So ASA has 318 students.
Yeah.
The 6th grade has around 45 or so,
Yep.
or 50, 45 to 50. So.
That's great. It was just a rough percentage I was interested
Right.
in. If it was
And
like
it
20%
really just
or
a children's
90%.
survey too, not a formal sign up.
Right.
And I think the formal sign up will be higher than the
Okay.
interest survey.
Thank you.
So I feel like those are all positive reports for where we are right now. I don't think anything new or different has come down that I can think of to report in terms of the SOP or any guidance coming out. So, you know, I think, and I mentioned this last meeting, that the messages I hear is that, and the commissioner's hearing this from the CDC, that they're expecting the state to kind of have a crest soon. And so I'm not seeing anything different come out of there except just keep doing what we're doing, and that's what our approach has been. So on COVID, I don't have anything more to bring. Are there any questions or items you'd like to know more about or discuss?
I suppose the only thing that comes to mind for me, well, first of all, just like, I think everyone's doing a great job. But my question about the staff vaccinations is, you know, there's clearly, we've got 9% that have had a long time to make this decision. Have we done any outreach to kind of say, like, okay, what are the reasons why you're choosing not to? And then, like, you know, sit down with education sessions, or what are we doing to try to bring those staff around, is my question, if anything.
I would say it's a delicate balance, in my opinion. I guess just based on guidance that I'm hearing is, you know, we could ask about their status. and they can elect to not report their status. And we, I think, actually, may be the only district that started out of the gate with vaccinator tests, from what I can tell in my meetings. But that's about to change, right? And so I think the vaccinator test has been another part of kind of the work with staff who are either not vaccinated or not reporting. But beyond that, it's really been just one-on-one. Karen has conversations with people, you know, as they have questions. She has a great relationship with a lot of staff. And so I know that she's had conversations with people as they've been maybe considering. But, you know, beyond that, we haven't done any kind of, any further education or encouragement for staff, other than to continue also offering lessons.
And just to expand on the point, so Biden's order turns out is going to apply to through OSHA. It's not going to apply to all public employees in all states, but it turns out in Maine, it will apply to the school districts of over 100 employees. So it will apply to Orono once that order is actually written, which it still has not been. We don't know exactly what the terms are, but it is basically a vaccinator test once a week. So it's like Meredith said, I think we were kind of sticking our necks out there alone as a board when we adopted that originally, but that's going to be the official, well, really federal position, but rippling down through the state going forward. But some of the details about what happens during, you know, holiday week and all the details of that are still up in the air. That rule has not been written or circulated for feedback yet. So. Any other questions? Knock on wood that topic is so short this week, and may it stay so. Construction update.
I have several updates, and Brian, you probably have some updates. There are a couple of projects that we've been doing on our own lately. One is something called access controls. When you go to the front door and the person at the desk buzzes and lets you in, so we can keep the doors locked but let people in that we deem as safe to come in. It was discovered late summer that wasn't in the scope of work, and it was a surprise to us that it wasn't. And so they were getting ready to do a change order and started that work to figure out costs, and their prices were way more than what we felt like we could do on that. So we've taken on that project. It's almost, I think Jason gave me an update today. We've had delays with equipment because of shortages. This particular equipment is, you know, technical, chip-based, and so there was delay on getting some of the pieces. Supposed to be here, I think, by end of week or top of next week. So we're really pleased that that's almost there, because what we've been doing is keeping doors locked, but someone's been having to run out and open. If you've been to the school, maybe you've observed that. So that's almost, I think, at the finish line, which will be great. There are a few other SREF projects that have to be completed, and they kind of got pushed to the end of summer in the, I think, rush to finish the big parts of Bowman's work in that phase this summer. So we're working with CHA to get some plans to be able to go out to bid on a couple of items, like the security cameras. It had to be, they were really dismantled in construction, and they were part of our SREF to replace in a, you know, more robust and more coverage kind of approach. That and the ramp out of 5th grade, some door signage at the middle and high school, and actually more door signage at ACES. So these little things we're trying to wrap up so that we can finish up all of SREF and do our filing with Maine Bond Bank to get our portion from the state back. So that's a big part of the effort happening right now, and it's outside of what Bowman's work is, because Bowman had responsibility for some of the SREF projects, and all but one of those, I think, are complete. And so now we're working with CHA on some of the others that are in our scope. And so Jason's involved with that. And then, of course, Brian and I are involved in that. And Bill who's here tonight, Bill, is, we're starting to work on some of those as well. So those are all in progress. The other thing that I want to report on is the track and field, because it's really the last thing that hasn't been officially open from the phase that we are wrapping up with this phase of the project. So we're not going to hit this Friday's target. And that was really not anything that Bowman had any fault or culpability in. It was really the bleacher project that was our project. And, 3 different delays of materials, actually 4, if you count the one that was supposed to arrive yesterday and had 2 critical pieces missing that, had to be shipped separate. So it's just, we're not going to make it. It's probably going to be ready. The bleacher and press box will be ready sometime Friday, they think. But then there are other pieces that the power has to be connected to the press box. And so we think that we may be able to open that facility next week. And along with that, you may have seen in some of the principal newsletters, Mike put together a kind of a set of track field guidelines, use parameters that we've shared, because this is a new facility, and because our old track really was in such poor shape, it was no limitations on usage, because you really couldn't do any further damage to the track in the condition it was in. But with this track, really, we want to protect this investment for our community for many years to come. So it's going to cause some just shifting of what people are accustomed to when they attend events, and also just for individual use. So we put signage up at the track to kind of share those use parameters, and then have the document that principals have shared out. And when I know that we're ready to open, then I'm going to do just one kind of official notice, and we'll put it on social media about it's open, and here's some things to know about the new facility and what we need to stay away from to keep it looking nice and in great shape for years to come. Things like no cleats, no motorized vehicles, no bikes, no anything with wheels, basically, or pets on the track. And at events, you can be on the track if you're exercising, but if there's an event, the gates will be closed, people will be outside the fence or in the bleachers or standing along the fence area to watch the game. Whereas before, people used to bring their lawn chair, right, and sit on the track, a lot of people. So that's just a change that I want to get out there so people aren't surprised or, caught off guard by that. But that's kind of a common set of, a common framework that you see at most fields we visit, to have, newer tracks that they're trying to preserve. So I just wanted to mention that and give you the time frame and update, and also just be clear that, it definitely is not Bowman that held us up here at the end. They really have been waiting on the bleacher project to be able to finish, because they have to wait until they pull out the crane Thursday or Friday, that they have to bring in to set the press box to do final grading to finish the loam and seed, because they just would have to redo it if they didn't wait on the crane to pull out. So they're just waiting now. There will be a punch list that goes with the track of things that will have to be completed. The track field consultant was here last Friday, did a walkthrough, and we'll be coming back with a punch list, much like we have the punch list at the other schools where we have the blue tape everywhere. There's a punch list of items for the track and field as well. I think that's all on this topic. Brian was in a meeting today that I had to step away from. Is there anything else that you'd have?
Nothing big from there. I mean, phase 1, we're in mostly, the track's a couple weeks behind, but we're mostly in punch list formal, moving into substantial completion. And then at some point, once the punch list is done, moving into final completion, which are legally meaningful states. And so that's the big bulk of the work. Of course, the main thing left with Bowman is the NCAP classrooms and the auditorium. So those are proceeding apace for spring. Still some back and forth on the schedule, so I don't want to get too committed, but spring. And really after that, we're more and more going to be, in wrapping up SRF, we're going to be transitioning to some of the self-managed projects, much of which will happen in summers. But you may remember we have some pretty big ones. The T1 siding on ASA that's getting ground down. Some of the parking lots got squeezed into the main project, so those will go away. But the T1 siding, reclaiming the kitchen, the old kitchen, the kitchen attached to the gym at ASA, is going to be as a utility room, is going to be something that's on the list. Moving the central administration into the steam room once the steam room moves, once the band and choir move down to the new auditorium, reclaiming that and getting rid of that 40-year-old temporary trailer that we've had, which appreciate the forbearance of everybody who works in it right now, and certainly been an eyesore too. So all those kinds of things are going to come in, and then we're going to be at a phase where we see how much money we have left. And we had several more projects that we identified that we wanted to do. I think probably the top of the list was a food shack, restrooms out of the sports, and some renovations here in the library. So it's going to really see that. We'll see how the money net goes, how far it goes, and the next couple of years we'll be doing smaller scale, but still for us pretty good sized projects that'll be more self-managed once Bowman wraps up those last two steps. So that's the really big sweep of construction. A lot done, a lot accomplished, and we're going to be still talking about construction for a couple more years. But I think everybody's really happy with what we're getting. So far, A, I think we're happy with the contractor, and B, I think we're really happy with the plan that CHA helped us put together. We got a lot of functionality for a really tight amount of money. So that seems to be realizing and working out. Anything else for questions on construction?
It's not really a question, I guess it's just a comment. I mean, I certainly understand supply chain issues and all kinds of things related to the pandemic delaying things, but I do think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's worth pointing out that the track and field complex is almost 2 months behind the date that it was promised for turnover, and I don't think any other part of this project is even remotely close to that far behind. So I'm not trying to lay blame on anybody's plate, but clearly something happened there that didn't happen in other parts. I mean, I find it hard to believe that supply chain issues just applied there that didn't apply to other parts, and so I'm really disappointed. The fact that this is 2 months behind schedule, pretty frustrating, to be perfectly honest. So.
Yeah, I mean, I share your frustration. I think that I think we own some of that for not ordering the bleachers sooner, right?
I would like to know specifically where to place that ownership.
I'm sorry?
I would like to know specifically where to place that ownership.
Well, for that, just look at me. I'll take ownership for that. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And that was our project. So there are only, a couple of us working on it. So I'll take that responsibility. I'm not going to throw anyone else out. But that they were, from there, we had time for them to be here, and then, 4 different delays from the company. And, you're just at the mercy of them right now. There's nothing that you can say to change what people are finding for supply shortages. And, I think they have more business than they know what to do with. So I'm not going to tell them, okay, you can keep your steel poles. I'll go somewhere else for them. I can't do that at this point. So, had we ordered the bleachers in March, I think we'd be at a different place, but we didn't.
And we would have had a bunch of steel sitting down somewhere in the way for 6 months as well.
It was a timing thing for sure, that the project had to be at a certain point before the bleachers could go in. And so we were trying to time it where we thought it needed to be. But it didn't work. The timing didn't work. And so here we are. And, we're waiting on it. So, I mean, if it helps to blame me. I don't know what else to tell you. It's not going to solve anything for us to. I don't think there's nothing that Bowman did to cause this problem. Now, the materials for the track That was a material shortage issue. Could they have ordered them earlier? Again, probably. But they didn't. They felt like they ordered them in the right time, but with where we are right now in construction, I was talking with someone today who's one of our most reliable contractors who bends over backwards for us. And he just said to me, like, this is the craziest time I've ever seen in this industry. And I can't give reliable quotes to anyone. And I hate that it's that way because I try to be very conscientious with what I'm telling people I can do and to deliver what I say I deliver, but I just can't right now. So I think Bowman has done what they could do on this project to get us in it. And I really don't find fault in how they approach the track, given the circumstances we're in. And
Talking to Robin today, she was making the point the project started even 6 months after us are having way more supply chain issues than we have. So I think there's kind of a glass half full, half empty perspective of, yes, it really sucks that the track didn't get done in time for, especially for this, homecoming. But, we could also be counting our blessings that that's been the only supply chain issue that's taken us substantially beyond schedule, because there are a lot of other construction projects out there, including almost all of them apparently that started 6 months later than we did, that are way more delayed than we have been. So I don't know. Supply chain issues are, they're every week of The Economist, there's another article about supply chain issues, and the New York Times, the Washington Post had an article about how Joe Biden's going to get blamed for having no toys available at Christmas. And,
I mean, they were supposed to be here in late August to be installed. Or mid-August to be installed. And then the first delay, there are probably more than 4 delays. There's just been 4 delays recently. And, so it kept getting pushed back because of material shortage. And I got frustrated with them about this, like, under promise, over deliver, please. Don't tell me one thing and then come back 3 weeks later and tell me another, and then 3 weeks later tell me another, and 3 weeks later tell me another. And that's kind of what this has been like. And, I could tell them to keep their bleachers, but that certainly wouldn't help us either. So I'm not sure, looking back, knowing what I know now, I would have ordered them 2 months earlier at least. But we thought we were fine. We weren't. So I don't have any way to, look back and see that, we should have known in June that this was coming. We didn't.
Just to put things I'm experiencing something similar. I had a major equipment that I ordered just in my own business. It's usually like a 2 to 4 week lead time. So I was trying to get a project done in August. So I ordered it in June. And the new estimate for delivery is mid-November. And that was the same thing. It's like every 3 weeks I'd get another call from the supply rep saying, bad news, it's going to be another 2 or 3 weeks. And then I'd get another call. And I pushed the whole project back to October. And then as soon as we were starting work, I got the call, bad news, it's going to be in November now. But, and he's beside himself. But to your point, Brian, he also said people who are ordering now are looking at 6-7 months, even when they're being told to expect it. So it's unreal what's happening with supply chain stuff.
And I think it's every industry too, like the automotive industry that I deal in. We have cars we can't get done because we can't get parts for them, and the manufacturers can't tell us when we can even have parts for them.
Yeah.
So it's, unfortunately, it's not just the construction industry. It's kind of supply chain wide. There's issues.
Yeah. I mean, again, you can have different perspectives, but I'm just grateful that as much of the construction came off on time, barely in time, but came off in time that it did.
Yeah.
When I start a construction project, even on my own home, that's much smaller scale, I expect it to go worse than this has. So, the outcome is really unfortunate, but honestly, secretly, much as I regret what happened, mostly I feel pretty lucky that we dodged as many bullets as we did. It's just a rip over and above construction just being tough, or you know, contractors knowing that they have you and taking however you want to phrase that about construction, which has not really happened on this project. It's just a unusual time to be doing construction. So,
And I have to just say, one specific kind of acknowledgement, Vaughn Thibodeau, who's mainly been in charge of the track project, have really been great to work with. I mean, they are really trying to give us really more than what's in the scope, which is, you know, really generous, I think. I think they've taken personal pride in the project, and they want this to be something really great for us. And they, you know, have a lot of pride in their work. And so, you know, like they would really like to pull out and move on, right? They're ready to be done out there, and they have been ready. They could have wrapped up probably a couple of weeks ago if they knew that they could just finish and get out. But we've added some things, you know, to do. I mean, they'll have punch list items, but it's really, you know, they've gone above and beyond and have hung around to wait until they can do what they need to do once and do it right for us. And so, you know, they said 2 weeks ago, I can put down this loan, but they're going to mess it all up and it's not going to stick and you're going to have to redo it. They've already lost one spraying because of rain. And so, you know, I really have appreciated their approach. The scope of work was on the road that goes out to the field and then over beside in between the practice field and the track. The specs called for it to just be put back in the original shape, which was, to be fair, kind of a poor condition gravel road, right? So they're going to actually put down some reclaimed paving for us on that whole road without any additional charge, just because they feel like, you know, that'll be nicer for us and it'll, you know, make the complex look even better. So that's just one example of, you know, they want it to be something that we're proud of and we're happy with, and they've taken some personal pride in it. So I'm pleased with their work on the project.
well, and since they didn't own the bleachers, they probably could be charging us for not having the opportunity to complete right now, which they're not. So, yeah, I mean, if I were to pin the blame, I would put it on the bleacher vendor, and we just don't have a lot of choices out there for that. And they had a captive market, and they had their own problems that were not. Some of it was their fault, some of it wasn't their fault. But you know, it is what it is.
Anything else on the facility project, construction update?
Staffing and shortage discussion.
Yeah, so I'm not sure I'm going to have all these numbers right because Lisa was adding some things in to her report that I'm not sure are captured in my calculations here. I just want to give you an update on where we stand with staffing. So all of our teaching staff have been full and they remain to be all hired. It's all support staff. So we're still short one custodian, 2 food service personnel, 3 ed techs last I knew. That might have changed, Lisa. 1 admin assistant that's been kind of the trickle effect of the domino effect of the first one leaving and now another one who took that position. The school lunch monitor that we added, thank you, but we still can't get applicants for that position. And the school health liaison, we're still holding that open, awaiting kind of any applicant pool there. And so, you know, one of the things that we were, though, since we last met, we were waiting, I guess I should add this, for 2 of our contracted custodial staff that we have asked them for 3 again this year. They've only been able to provide 1, but they've just provided a second who started last Monday, about a week ago. So that's helpful. But we're still, I guess, adding that we're still trying to get 1 more from them this year. So, you know, the staff continue to just try to find ways to get it done, but we're just, I guess the other area I didn't say that's coming to mind now is our subs. We have a growing sub pool, but it's still short. And so, you know, some days feel like we're holding it together with Scotch tape and paper clips. If, you know, depending on how many staff are out, it really is some days feeling like that. So, you know, I think one of the requests I bring to you tonight is a reframing of a food service position. And we feel like in some of the research we've done that might be a solution to kind of two problems we're trying to solve in our food service shortage. One is that really since mid-year last year, we've been trying to replace someone on the ASA staff who was really more like a lead kitchen manager down there. And we've been trying to find someone to take over that role with some new responsibilities. So someone who has some training and can add, you know, a little more even more leadership to that position, but have just been unable to attract someone in this competitive job market for that position. And so related to that, pay is an issue, right? To find someone to take on a leadership role like that has some skills, they can make quite a bit more elsewhere. And so we did some research and found a similar type of job structure in another local district, and talked to them some about how they structure that. And so we are bringing to you that concept of a kitchen manager, and I've shared with you a job description for that role. And I think one of the things, as you know, with you know, our collective bargaining agreement, I think we were trying to figure out where this falls, because it's not the same as the other bargaining unit employees in food service, but it's definitely not the same as Ben's role. It's in between, but as we look at it, it's more like the food service worker job description than like Ben's job description, but it has some of both in there. So we see this as something that will need to be added to our EST CBA ultimately, and so I had some preliminary conversations with Shauna about that. And so tonight, at the end of the meeting, I would ask that we discuss in executive session kind of some structure around that, and how you know, the board would direct that we move forward with that in terms of working with the association on that kind of potential amendment or MOU to the CBA. So, I mean, I don't have anything more to add about that other than, you know, we're hopeful that this can, with you know, now a larger expanded kitchen with lots of capabilities for, you know, types of food preparation we haven't had before. We think it's a good time to add that role there that Ben has been bouncing, you know, since last year to try to provide support in those places, but really had been up here more than down at ASA last year. And now he absolutely can't leave this kitchen at all, anytime, until we get more staff overall. But we see that it would be great to have someone like that in the ASA kitchen. Ben's office is up here. And so, you know, doing a lot of his administrative duties, he does those and stuff in this kitchen and then in the central office. So we think putting someone like that at ASA would be a logical next step for growing that program into this beautiful, you know, kitchen that can really do great things with our food service program now. So we're continuing to think about other ways to solve the shortage that we're seeing, and hope that we'll, you know, see more applicants and chip away at this issue. Any questions or feedback at this point? Okay. So item D, the supervision evaluation waiver discussion. So I emailed you to just give you a little background when I put this on the agenda. I wanted to provide some background to you. So we talked about this a little bit in August, and there was legislation passed in the last session that allowed districts to boards to approve a waiver of supervision evaluation requirements for the coming year in, I guess, acknowledgement of, you know, an anticipation of this is not going to be a normal year. We're going to continue to struggle with COVID-related stressors and issues. So in August, as you know, things felt more optimistic still, like, okay, we can do this, you know, we're going to have all kids back. There was a lot more optimism about what was possible than I think what we felt for the first 5 weeks of school in terms of supervision evaluation. When we look at the timeline we're normally on for that, things have already started typically now. And when we circled back to our admin team to talk about this the last couple of times we've met, you know, there's just this growing concern among the admin team of, you know, I have my year timelined out of what needs to happen with this, and we're already starting behind, and I'm not seeing how we can catch up. So as we talked about this, you know, we talked about what our priorities were and what to us was the most important part of this to make sure was kept in place for this year. And really, as you know, with the probationary cycle being reduced to 2 years, those are really critical years for supervision evaluation, getting you know, into those classrooms, working with those teachers to support them during that time, but also have data to make, you know, decisions that we bring recommendations to you for each year. So with those individuals, they each require 2 observation cycles per year, one in the fall, one in the spring. And I think I might have mentioned, I think we have 12 to 13 of those individuals. We're in the last year of a few individuals that are in the 3-year cycle still. And then everyone else, other than those people who are year 3 this year, are in that 2-year cycle. So our year 1s and 2s are all in 2-year cycles. So the conversation we had was observation cycles definitely have to be a part of what's continued. That's really critical for those staff members. The observation cycles for continuing contract, we felt like part of what we wanted to bring you was the idea that those could be waived in consultation with the teacher. And in doing so, give admin the flexibility to kind of redistribute those to make sure that things are spaced out in a way that there's as even a number as possible cycling through each year. We have some schools that are really pretty not evened out, but just to either push that a year for people who said, you know, I'm fine waiting till next year, or to move forward this year for anyone who said, you know, I really like to get off my plate and I feel like I'm ready to do it, we would move forward. So that's one part of the request that we bring to you tonight for consideration. And the other part has to do with the portfolio need to. So as you know, we re-image the SLO, the student learning objectives. It's really a goal setting and data collection part of the portfolio process. And it's now called Egypt. So it's new this year. It's not completely new, but it's been repackaged, kind of framed, and just different framework around it. So that's also included into the portfolio. And I think that's another piece that people, the admin team just felt like, you know, that's another piece that we would like to see waived, because that's another part of the fall work. Like, you're needing to set goals and have those meetings with teachers, and those, you know, we haven't had time to get those going yet. And, you know, over the course of the whole year, I think the portfolio is something that, you know, is an extra layer over the course of the whole year. If you're doing it the way you need to do it, you need to be doing that all year, and then having it ready for the April or the April timeline. And that feels like, in this year's context, to be a lot. I was talking with someone yesterday, and we both agreed that that last year felt like, we were ready to take on the challenges of the year. Everyone was geared up. This is gonna be really hard. And we had maybe energy and not energy, but almost like we were prepared for it. And this year it just felt like it's just been hard in maybe harder ways than last year. And we also just didn't feel like we had that frame going into it. So it's made it feel all the more hard. So I guess, I think that these kinds of considerations really are important for us to really just be listening and mindful of what we're seeing and hearing from staff and what they really need in terms of support to make it through this difficult time. And, you know, I said to Brian today, and I'll just say this for everyone, you know, at one point today, I felt like closing my door and crying, right? And I think everyone has those moments. And so I think we just need to listen to people and try to give them what they need during this time, because it's been really hard. So I don't want to start crying right now. So like I'm saying that, just admitting that to you. But, you know, I feel like that's the kind of year we're in, that it's unexpectedly hard. So that's what I bring. And it's okay if we want to think about it tonight, discuss it, circle back to it if you want more information. But I think that, you know, in August, we felt like there's no need to consider this. And in October, we're saying there's a need to consider this. So I do think we need to make a decision by next meeting if we're going to make a decision, because we need to know where we're going with this. Because as I said, things already are happening or need to be happening around this. So discussion, feedback, questions, and Richard is the co-chair with Shauna on this. They've both been in consultation about this, the admin team. We've all talked about this. So, you know, they might be able to answer questions if I don't have those answers.
I completely hear what you're saying and understand where you're coming from. I have a question about the service learning requirement.
That's a separate issue.
Yeah, that's down the agenda.
That's on the agenda?
Student
Oh, okay.
requirements.
Sorry, I was looking at the report. I thought those were grouped together. I'll
Yeah.
hold that then.
Okay, yeah, this is the staff evaluation.
So this is, back in August, we approved the evaluation plan,
Yep.
which we're mandated by the state law to do every year. There's a committee of teachers and administrators who put together an evaluation plan, and we approved that. And there was a law that gave us an opt-out about some of the evaluations. The law lets us opt out of every teacher, every principal, except for people who are up for a continuing contract, second and third years. And Meredith's not proposing as extreme as what the law is proposing. But and like Meredith said, back in August, we were like, no, we can do it. And now we're not. So it would be to remove the portfolio piece, which we just added in August for all teachers, and to take any teacher who's already on a continuing contract, not on a probationary contract, and let some of them move back in consultation between the principals and the teachers about who moves back here and who doesn't. Not that they're all going to move back or none of them are going to move back, but move some back based on discussion between the teachers and the principals. And anybody who's in a first, second, or third year continuing contract would get the full. They wouldn't get the portfolio, but they would get the full classroom visit evaluation.
Yeah, my apologies. I thought we were just grouping everything in that document together into one discussion.
No, sorry,
but
yeah, I was
I didn't
okay.
realize those were split up
Yeah.
into different agenda items. I fully support everything you're proposing with regard to the supervision and evaluation waiver. I think it sounds really reasonable and absolutely warranted. So thanks for putting all the thought into that with everyone.
I mean, I personally feel like one of the most important things we do, well, the most important thing the board administration do is put good teachers in classrooms. I think there's data that backs that up, and you know, evaluation is central to that. But I also feel like this year is an exceptional year, and you know, 5 years from now we'll have a debate about whether last year was harder or this year was harder. But I think we all thought last year was going to be harder, and now we're starting to wonder. So, you know, even as strongly as I feel about teaching quality and teaching evaluations, we're not really, or anybody's on a continuing contract unless they're in the process of being fired for just cause. You know, anybody's on a continuing contract, it's not changing the outcome. And all the ones who are still on a probationary contract, we're giving up on the portfolio, but we just added that in this year. We were fine for the 2 or 3 years without that. So I think this is a nice compromise that lets us survive this year. And I use that word advisedly, survive this year, while doing absolute maximum due diligence towards evaluating teachers where we're actually, deciding whether to offer them a continuing contract or not. So I think it's just the right compromise personally.
I agree.
I do too. I'm in full support.
I'm certainly supportive of waiving the summer evaluation for continuing contract teachers, or making it optional at their request. I don't have any issues with that. I am wondering if anybody could explain to me, I guess, a couple of things. First of all, I thought the portfolio had been in place for a while. I was not aware that it was new this year. I thought we've had that in place.
The portfolio is not new. EDIP has been the goal setting process.
It used to be something different, right?
It used to be called SLO.
Okay, so neither one of them are entirely new.
No, EDIP is just a new process around goal setting. And like I said, I don't think it's new, but I think people feel like it's new,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
It's the thing.
It's
been
much more quantitative and specific.
So given that, I'm wondering if either Meredith or Richard or Shauna, or I suppose it could be Kristen too, or anyone, any of the administrator team that's on here, could you explain to me the role that the portfolio and the goal setting process, whatever it's called, plays in your recommendation for moving along a probationary or for continuing contracts?
Mark, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, Richard.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to do that. I think the most important piece, in my opinion, of the teacher evaluation is the classroom, the FOFA piece, right? The classroom observation, the collaboration with teachers about what they do in their classroom. And that's, to me, is the most important piece. The portfolio piece, which I was already been noted, is something that has been longstanding within our teacher evaluation system, and that really focuses more on teacher professional development opportunities, which we know have been greatly diminished in the last couple of years in light of the pandemic. Or like opportunities have been diminished, I think. Not that our teachers haven't been engaged in professional development, but opportunities have been diminished. And so I think under the current circumstances, we could do an effective job and continue to do the classroom observations and the important work of supporting the important work of teaching and learning, and by focusing our energies on that piece of it, rather than on the require teachers to do the portfolio at this current time. And I think with the EDIP model is that replaces the old student learning objectives that was part of the state mandate. And we felt like that was important, and we made it a part of the teacher portfolio this fall. But that currently is it's a new piece. It's something different, and so we thought that might be smart to consider waiving that this year, and not introduce a new component into the teacher evaluation. So I hope that answers your question, Mark.
It does. Just a couple of things to follow up on. So would it be fair to say then that for the portfolio piece, that because professional development opportunities were significantly diminished, that there would be less of a portfolio to evaluate? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a fair assessment. Yes.
Okay, and then in terms of the goal setting, what exactly does that goal setting, or what would it, since it's somewhat new this year, what would that entail? Are we asking the teachers in consultation with their administrators to come up with goals for growth and improvement? Is that what the goal setting entails?
Yeah, the goal setting piece is really individualized, right? Like, so it'd be different for a new teacher versus a veteran teacher, but it really establishes a conversation around where, where a teacher wants to go with their own professional development, right? Like over a 3-year period within the evaluation cycle. And so there's no real one size fits all. It would be pretty individualized.
Okay.
It's really more of an inquiry project than personal growth goals for your craft and your practice, but out of inquiry certainly comes growth on your practice, right? So I think it's more about an observable process for an administrator to see how teachers are using data to inform their practice.
Yes, thank you, Meredith. I was going to say, I think we're confusing the goals of a teacher's evaluation process and timeline, the professional practice goals with the data inquiry goals that are embedded in the EDIP. So we have 2 sets of goals, one that governs the professional practice and growth of pedagogy, and then we have some data analysis collection goals in the EDIP. And the EDIP we're asking to put aside for a year, not the professional practice goals.
And so the SLO was the same as the professional practice goals or different?
SLO was more like the EDIP.
But it was not data driven, or didn't have to be data driven is the big difference, right?
Well, the SLO was supposed to be actually more narrowly data driven is the difference. EDIP is a more it's a broad framework as opposed to flows that were pretty narrowly focused that you had to choose more like student achievement, and they were specifically driving you to standardized testing is what the state really was on that.
Just to see if I recap, the professional goal setting still exists. The SLO, which was narrowly data-driven student learning objectives, which turned into EDIP, is the thing that's being proposed to be postponed for a year.
So it's the portfolio that includes EDIP, but the portfolio is larger than that, right? The portfolio is, there's a whole set of evidence-based pieces that teachers are asked to put together for review. So does one of the administrators, because they're not coming to mind off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me, like the components of the portfolio aside from EDIP, could someone comment on those? Because I think that's what Mark's question is.
Oh, actually, I think I understand what the portfolio process is, but I guess I'm maybe even a little bit more confused as to what the goals in EDIP are. So if anybody could share on that,
Mark,
that would be awesome.
I can chime in. So we have to separate out the 2 things. Like the portfolio is one thing, but within the portfolio is the EDIP, which is the Educator Data Inquiry Project. Okay, and there's 2 parts to that, and that would take place over a 2-year period. The first part would be the planning phase, right, and that would be teacher would set goals and develop a plan of action around data-driven inquiry. Okay, that could be NWA test scores. It could be something completely different based on a teacher's interest and their needs within their specific classroom. Part 2 of the EDIP would be implementation of the plan, right? So, and then that would become part of the portfolio. Okay, it's very similar in aspect to the old SLO system, similar in nature to that. Okay, so and that is part of the teacher portfolio. Okay, so what we're asking is to waive for 1 year the EDIP. Okay, and consider waiving components of the portfolio so that it streamlines things for this 1 year. Does that help?
Yes, but I hate to keep belaboring this because I think everybody's fully on board anyway.
Yep.
It sounds to me like you could still do, it sounds to me like the EDIP is severable from the portfolio, so you could still do EDIP without doing the full portfolio. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then related to that, you said it's a 2-year process. So if we have a first-year teacher this year and they do not start this year, then they would not be able to complete an EDIP cycle before being considered for continuing contract. Is that also correct?
It could be completed in 1 year, easy enough.
So your EDIP is going to be included in your portfolio wherever you are in the process. So if you're, if you set up a 2-year goal for your EDIP and it involves, this set of activities year 1 and this set of activities year 2, you may be only halfway through your inquiry project at the end of year 1 when you're doing a portfolio if you're a probationary teacher. But then other people might set it up for a year-long time period.
That's right.
Seems like this conversation's unnecessarily I don't know, it's getting complicated. So I just wanted to, I've opened the professional development or the supervision evaluation plan. So the portfolio is a collection of and certificates of attendance for professional development and conferences and new learning and self-reflection, and includes also like walkthroughs that you've done with colleagues, and also it includes your EDIP and reflection. Started learning walks was the phrase I was looking for in the portfolios, and professional goals. That's really a part that's kind of a bridge between the two. Like professional goals are a conversation that administrators have with teachers as they're leading into that first FOFA, right? You're sitting down, you're talking about what are their growth goals, what are you going to be working on this year, and you're trying to establish that as you start into the FOFA process, and they're starting into the whole evaluation cycle for the year.
That's not going anywhere.
Well, I think that wouldn't go anywhere, because that's part of the FOFA process that you're establishing when you're having those pre-observation conferences with teachers.
Okay.
I think typically the professional goals find their way also into portfolios that we're recommending to waive this year or make optional, because they're a big part of professional learning. Like, I'm trying to grow in this area, so you're going to see it. We're going to talk about it in my FOFAs. And then also I'm going to be doing some focus work, and I'll reflect that in my portfolio this year. So I think professional goals are kind of embedded throughout the whole process. They don't just live in one place. That's kind of the best way I can describe professional goals.
That's helpful. I think I understand. And again, I'm fully on board with waiving some of the evaluations for continuing contract teachers and making, unless they request it, and also with making the portfolio and the EDIP optional for those teachers. I guess I'm not fully on board with taking those things away for probationary period teachers, given that we've got such a short window on which to make a decision, what for all intents and purposes is lifetime employment as long as there's good behavior. Like, it's a Supreme Court position essentially. I'm reluctant to give up anything on that. So I guess
typically I think many of us are. Yeah. So I feel that same. I'm conflicted in the same way about it. And I guess I'd like, if the board feels that that's something we should look at, we'll certainly look at it. I just don't, I want to retain teachers who are good teachers too. So that's the other side of it. Like, where's that balance this year between, collecting that good data, but also not overwhelming people in this kind of tenuous feeling year. So I don't know. Maybe we could put our heads together and figure out a middle ground for something with portfolio light for our probationary teachers that has them doing a kind of a version of it that maybe feels less overwhelming.
I mean, I totally get where you're coming from. I'm predisposed that way too, but I've been thinking about this a lot, and two things come up. One, We all know first and second year teachers are the most overwhelmed teachers of all, right? They're the ones who are probably working 60 hours a week already just to get the curriculum for the next day and to survive. So kind of to Meredith's point about retention and avoiding, you know, toxic burnout of people. I think from that point of view, that's a concern for the purpose, especially because it's new and we don't have a best practice developed in this district, and they can't go down the hall and ask a teacher 5 years ahead of them, show me your EDIP so I can, you know, get a sense of what they look like. It's a new practice, so it's an especially burdensome piece because it's new. And then from the other side, you know, my reading of the data, the best evaluation of teachers is student evaluations, which, you know, that's quite rare in the K-12 education. It's very common in university education, but we're not doing that. Nobody else is doing that. And really the next best, you know, to all the studies of teacher quality is that principal walking, you know, the experienced previous teacher principal walking in the room and doing the evaluations. And pretty much everything else, all these portfolios and EDIPs are, you know, trying to supplement and complement that. But in this year of scarce resources, I would rather have the energy focused on what I think is the primary evaluation tool, which is principals walking the classroom, giving feedback to teachers, re-observing multiple times to observe growth and those kinds of things. I just think that's the fundamental. We've hung our hat on that as the central piece. The portfolio is only what, 5 or 10 or what percentage of the total evaluation is it?
It used to be 15, isn't it 20 now? Is it
20.
20? Sorry.
Okay, so it's up to 20%, but you know, the principal evaluations are still 80%, and I think that's entirely appropriate. It's the data supports that among the most effective tools we have. So while I'm really loath to let go of any information for these teachers, because as a board, we talk about this all the time, that's probably the most consequential decisions the board makes is giving people permanent or continuing contracts. I really think partly from a teacher burnout point of view, but mostly from, I want the principals to focus on the primary 80% and not the 20%. So that's where I have kind of come down to letting go of the EDIP/portfolio this year. Is I think the classroom principal interactions and observations are just that much more important.
I agree, but if we kept that component just for probationary teachers, Meredith said in her email, she said rough count was 17. Then earlier she mentioned 12 or 13 perhaps. If we're only asking for it, we're eliminating it for everybody else and only asking for 12 or 13.
It's 17, sorry.
Maybe there's, you know, some bandwidth freed up. I mean, I'm certainly happy to go along with all the recommendations that are being made for continuing contracts. I'd also certainly be interested in hearing about kind of this light version or somewhere in between, or maybe even just the EDIP without the full portfolio. I don't know if that would work. I don't know enough about the process, but I think I don't know that I'm willing to let go of it entirely for the probationary period teachers. 20% is clearly not a majority, but it's also not nothing either. So I don't know. That's where I am. If it's put together as a package, I would probably vote against it. If it's chopped up and the continuing contract are separated from probationary, I'm all on board for continuing contract requests. So
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Did you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay. So to Mark's point and concern, if we think about when I think about something like the EDIP, I think about it requiring minimal disruption. That's an assumption I'm making. Like when I think of doing something along the lines of action-based research, or, you know, which is to me this type of inquiry project, which would really mean, right, like having, you kind of make the assumption that students are going to be there all the time and that you're going to have a lot of ways to do different interventions and collect data on that. So I'm wondering, is my assumption accurate? And maybe just to help the board understand, like, what are some of the assumptions that we tend to make with something like the EDIP that that we just, you know, are kind of in uncharted waters this year, not just with bandwidth, but also with expectations of, you know, what would really need to happen to ensure that these can be done. I will say I'm coming at this from the sense of, you know, I am not strongly going to hold on to these. Mark, I completely understand your point, and it is a tension for me, absolutely. But from what I know, having done this type of work myself before in a classroom, is that it really requires a lot of consistency in a lot of different ways, both with like student attendance, modality, etc. But maybe I'm making those assumptions, you know, based on my own experiences only. So I was wondering if anybody can kind of speak to that.
So I think that one of the assumptions that we made in the development of the EDIP is that our hope is that it was going to cultivate a context in which we broaden our perspective on student data and shifted away from just traditional assessment data as a measure of student growth and achievement, which in some ways, you know, is how the SLO was designed, and encourage teachers to, you know, especially in this realm of concern about social and emotional student well-being, you know, thinking about other ways that we could quantify a student's experience in our classroom. And so in this way, we are talking about really a shift in mindset with respect to data in the district, which as a, you know, somebody who was part of this development process, I think that the role of a mentor text is really important. I think that we do need to, you know, be able to frame for teachers pretty concretely, you know, what are some versions of how this evolves and what it looks like. And so I think, Mark, to your you know, question about having this be a project on which we focus with our probationary teachers, in some ways, I am reluctant to have that group essentially bear the responsibility for framing what this looks like for us. In some of our discussions at the admin team, you know, we talked about how putting this on hold for 1 year would give us an opportunity to elicit veteran volunteers to undergo pilot EDIPs that we could then offer to, as examples to the rest of faculty, but to probationary teachers in particular. And so I think that one of the assumptions that we made as part of the process was that at some point, you know, we would be able to manifest a model. And because of the host of challenges to which we have all been witness, that is something that hasn't yet happened.
Thanks, Meredith. That's helpful to know. You know, part of me wishes almost that there was some kind of mechanism like they have at the university where a probationary candidate could stop the clock, right? And that would give kind of the best of both worlds for everybody. It gives them a year, but it also gives the evaluating process a year without a penalty either side. We don't have that mechanism in place here. At the end of the day, I don't think it matters much. I think the rest of the board is clearly on board with this. And so I don't want to belabor the point, plus the Yankees play at 8 o'clock. So I'm happy to have the vote on it and move on. But I do wish that there were a mechanism in place to, you know, kind of maybe just stop the process, right? And under these circumstances, you know, both for the good of the candidate, but also for, you know, the good of the people performing the evaluation, so that it's kind of almost a hold harmless clause for both sides.
That would be the best possible scenario, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree.
I agree 100% with that, Mark.
Yeah.
So, I think it would take a formal,
I think
because
since
we've
we
approved
approved
the plan
yeah.
as it was presented in August.
I'm hearing at least a consensus to go ahead and vote tonight. So I'll make a motion that the board authorizes the change to the evaluation plan under LD 1172 to defer for this year the portfolio and EDIP. I was going to get the order of the acronym wrong. To defer the EDIP And for teachers with continuing contracts to optionally, in consultation with their principals or administrators, defer their evaluations for a year. Did I get that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further conversation? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth,
Aye.
Mark,
Nay.
Patrick,
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
I also vote aye, so it passes 4-1. Okay. Do we have any hiring?
We do not,
I
and we
don't-
don't have any co-curriculars.
Yeah.
Told us, so.
All right, so we're into policies. These are courtesy of our rolling check through the policies to, we're reading through the policies to look for small details, and these are all coming forward as revisions. There's small changes. So I will make a motion, and then we'll discuss and explain to adopt the revised policy GE as presented. Is there a second?
I second.
Oh, somehow I just was on top of my pile and out of the agenda order, but we have GE on the floor at this point, so we'll stick with it. So you may recall, we have the date here, yeah, 2 years ago now, we adopted this policy on stipends. They floated around without a policy, and it's a pretty big chunk of money. It's several $100,000. So we adopted a policy. By and large, everybody in the policy committee was happy. And I think it's accurate to say Shauna was represented there too. So not just the administration, but I think the union was happy as well. But we are proposing a few small changes just to specify. We sort of had built this notion of large stipended positions having a higher burden in terms of a hiring process, larger hiring committee. And so partly just with inflation, we're redefining large stipended position to be $4,500 instead of $4,000. So anything that's a stipend position in a year that's 4,500 or more would be what invokes this. And just to be clear, we've kind of been acting in this fashion, but diverse stakeholders is now, we'll look at the second page here, more specifically specified to include a board member and a community member. So those are the changes that are going on and the rationale behind that. Any questions or comments? All right, we're ready for a vote. Beth,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
I also vote aye. I'll try and get back on the agenda here. So GCI is next. And this is professional staff development opportunities, pretty short and to the point. The board encourages professional staff development. However, given the changes, we are no longer encouraging development specifically towards proficiency-based systems for student learning and achievement. We're not prohibiting that if that's something a teacher wants to pursue, but it's not something that's on our list of encouraged directions of development. So I would make a motion to adopt policy GCI revision as presented. Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
I also vote aye, so that's 5-0. Last policy is policy GCOC, evaluation of administrative staff. Really, the only thing that we're changing here, we put this in place, 2016 is the big change. I remember, I guess we tweaked it in 19 to have the 360 surveys and some of those kinds of things. Really, we're just having the evaluation criteria approved annually by the board of directors. So that parallels what we're doing with the teachers. And having the positions up, just putting in a little more language. It's a little bit vague, every 5 years and as needed, but putting in some intentionality about reviewing the job descriptions, because obviously the principal job or any of the administrative jobs do change over time. So those are the two changes. I'm spacing. Did we get a motion and a second on this yet?
No.
No. All right. I would motion to approve the revisions to policy GCOC as presented. Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth,
Aye.
Jake,
Aye.
Patrick,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
I also vote aye. So those are 3 revised policies. Next up is election of a MESDA delegate. For those of you who are new to the board, So there's the Maine School Management Association, which contains within it MESBA, Maine School Board Association, and I don't know how you pronounce it, MESA, the Maine School Superintendents Association. Those largely work together. But specifically MESBA, the School Board Association, has an annual meeting where delegates from every board that elects a delegate come together and pass resolutions. These resolutions are occasionally they change their bylaws or something, but these resolutions are primarily focused on policy positions for the MSMA lobbyists to work with for the state legislature. So they're basically statements of policy position. In some years, I think it's fair to say the things that come out of the executive committee for policies end up being pretty controversial. Sometimes they end up splitting northern, richer southern Maine and, less money northern Maine, various other things. So they're pretty controversial. I don't know. We'll talk through positions of this board on the 4 things next meeting, but one of them is basically asking the state to continue funding money to catch up from education and COVID. It's phrased more elegantly that I forget what the second one is. The third one is to reiterate a position that allowing, I forget what's third and fourth, but one of them is allowing teachers to go to arbitration, is turning over the power of communities to control their budgets, and the other is that allowing teachers to go on strike as a disservice to students. So those are 3 of the 4. I'm forgetting the second, but it's obviously not standing out to me as exciting. Those are the 4 that are going to be debated and passed, plus new things could come up. So sometimes people change these things or new things come up, but those are the 4 that are pre-approved out of the executive committee. But tonight we have to turn in by the 19th or the 18th, which is before our next board meeting, who the delegate is. I've done it the last couple of years. It's going to meet on the morning of October 23rd. It's a Saturday. It's basically Saturday morning, and it's the week before. It's usually at the conference, but conference is virtual. So it's going to be the Saturday, the week before the conference this year. Somebody else wants to do it, I'm more than happy to seat it, but I'm also happy to do it. Honestly, it's pretty, when there's a controversial policy, it's kind of exciting, but when they're all really boring, it's a bunch of people who should know parliamentary procedure better than they do, spending a lot of time debating parliamentary procedure before they ever vote on anything. I think we spent 6 hours debating parliamentary procedure at the first time it was ever held on Zoom. It was really painful, but
Really selling it.
I know I'm selling it well.
That's what I was about to say.
What's your nomination?
I think it's going to be a quick one this time, so maybe it's a good chance to go and be a learner. Does anybody else want to do it? Okay. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Seeing that nobody else is volunteering after that cell job, I'm not surprised. I will go ahead and make a motion to nominate Brian McGill as the RSU 26 Board of Directors delegate.
I will second.
Any discussion? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
I'm abstaining. Jake?
Aye.
Okay.
On a related note, just wanted to mention, Brian mentioned the MSMA annual fall conferences the next week on Thursday and Friday. It's virtual. We need to send in our registrations. Brian and I usually attend. I think we both plan on attending. It's a slate of workshops over the course of 2 days. If anyone else wants to go, just let me know, and we'll, I'd like to know this week so we can get the registration sent in. If you want more information, I'm happy to pass it along if that's part of your decision making around it. So let me know if you're interested in learning more so you can decide whether to go or not. It's usually lots of sessions from the DOE. Sometimes other districts are making presentations about, best practices. The 2 major legal firms that represent school districts in the state usually provide sessions as well on, a variety of topics.
Yeah, I mean, just to do a better job of selling than I did the last one, it is virtual. So, for example, I'm teaching on Thursday. I'm not going to attend the entire day Thursday, but it is possible to drop in and out as your schedule allows. And as Meredith said, it's basically people we would pay money to come and consult with us are instead showing up and giving free sessions. And so, and there's often like 5 parallel sessions, so Meredith and I can't possibly cover everything that's out there. We often check in with each other to make sure we're covering everything that's important, but you know, more coverage would be great. And sometimes it's just kind of a nice periscope peek at the horizon of future policies and trends in education. So this is a pretty painless year to do it. The opposite of the delegate session, which was painful on Zoom. This is, you know, in many ways going to be a much lighter commitment. Don't have to drive down to Augusta and commit for a day. You can just drop in and out as your schedule allows to attend it. So pretty good starter time to attend this conference and see.
I'll forward the email that has the agenda with session topics to everyone, just so you can take a look and see if you're interested.
Thank you.
Also just fun to talk to other board members, quite frankly. I guess it'll be a little bit less in Zoom, but you know, sometimes they have very similar issues, sometimes they have very different issues going on. Okay, so now we're on the service learning requirement adjustments for class of 2022.
So last year, actually the last 2 years, we have brought this recommendation. A component of our graduation requirement policy is a requirement for 30 hours of community service for our graduates. And, you know, these have just been challenging times to be able to get out and complete community service. There aren't as many opportunities for that now. You know, like we haven't been accepting many volunteers in our facility. I think other facilities likewise have taken the same approach. So the staff brought this to me again this year, and I think it's definitely still justified to continue this waiver for another year. So it would take board action to waive the policy requirement.
Okay, so now I'll ask my question. So when I read this, I think it's very reasonable to waive this considering the circumstances with the pandemic still ongoing. My question was, if there was a student who wanted to do this, is that going to be available for them? So like someone was like, they had a project planned and they're really into it. I don't want like the rug to get pulled out from anyone who was excited about this.
Sure. I mean, it's not something that is prohibitive to not have the requirement in place. It's certainly something that students can pursue. And there are students who have already done this, right? There are students who start this early and well exceed 30 hours.
Yeah, there's a
right?
lot of students who are already done.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So there's no problem with students who want to either continue on or, you know, with
Right.
this requirement.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah, there's always a group that, you know, need more hours, especially senior year. And it's just been a couple of years of probably some challenges for people who maybe would struggle to do this requirement anyway.
Okay, thank you.
So
I'll go ahead and make the motion and we can discuss. So I would make a motion to waive the service learning requirement in policy IKF for the graduating class of 2022 for this year. Is there a second?
I second.
Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and vote. Beth?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
I also vote aye, so it passes 5-0. Subcommittee reports, policy subcommittee, you've seen some of our work. As Meredith mentioned, this Drummond and Woodson workshop highlighted lots of policy impacts. I think the two most important are in the physical restraints policy that that law changed a bit, and so we need to update our policy. I think it's JK, was it AF or something? I have it in front of me. Anyway, the physical restraints policy, we need to update that, and that needs these. Most of these laws become, sorry, JKAA. Most of these policies become effective October 18th. So we're going to miss it by a day and vote on it the 19th, but would like to get that up to date. And there's a significant new law about workplace bullying in schools. So ACAF, ACAF. So both of those policies are going to come to the policy subcommittee this Thursday with, you know, probably recommendations to the board to pass both those policies at the 19th. And then other than that, we're still kind of working through the policies and we have a couple of little tweaks here and there. that may come out as well. But the two big ones, there'll probably be some smaller policy changes. Adding familial status to the law added gender identity and familial status to the non-discrimination statutes. We already had gender identity, but we need to add familial status. There'll be some more tweaks. Two big ones are the ones I mentioned. So we'll have some more ripples throughs from the state law changes and the ongoing policy review. But the big two would be the physical restraints in the workplace bullying for this Thursday.
Brian, can I ask you a question about the version of the restraint policy in the under consideration folder? There's a bunch of, Lisa's got a bunch of markups in there. Has that been done? I assume that's done reflective of the new legislation.
That's to reflect the new legislation.
Thank you.
UTC.
Yeah, so I went to my first meeting, gosh, was it last Thursday or the Thursday before? I forget, but that was a special meeting to address the process for finding a new director for UTC. There's currently an interim director. I'll be honest, I don't know why the previous one left. I haven't dug that hard yet. I'm still very new to learning about the United Technology Center. And the decision was made to retain the Maine School Management Association to run the search process in conjunction with the board. There was some positive feedback from representatives there from the Bangor School District, who I understand used the Maine School Management Association for their superintendent search. And so that process is kind of in the process of kicking off, and it had already been budgeted for to hire them. In fact, they came in under budget compared to what UTC had set aside. And then this Thursday, I'll be going to the first regular monthly meeting for the United Technology Center, and I will have more to report back after that.
Great. Yeah, it probably does make a lot of sense for UTC to go through MSMA search process. A lot of districts do that, and with them being a multi-district, different cultures coming together, makes a lot of sense. Spruce.
Yeah, likewise, we have our first meeting of the year this Thursday, 6 o'clock via Zoom. So I guess I'll have more at the next meeting.
Great. Curriculum subcommittee, I guess, meeting in 9 days, and the output on the remote, or what are we calling it, quarantine learning plan is, we saw that already at a board meeting. That was the main output from the last curriculum committee. Anything else to add, Mark or Meredith?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Facilities, Meredith, sorry, were you going to add something?
I think she just said no.
Oh, okay. Facilities and building committee, you already heard. There is a building committee meeting a week from tomorrow, a week from Wednesday. And I think that's it. Is there other business? Any requests for future agenda items? I will note that we will have a public comment session and a board discussion about student awards and recognitions. We committed to that last spring, and that's going to come forward at the next board meeting.
I just had a question. But it was over the summer when we did our long-term goal setting. I remember, Brian, you had mentioned talking about the schedule and realigning the schedule to, match the university and how that could be an advantage. Is that something we're going to be looking at this year, do you think? Or, I mean, I don't know what people feel. I feel like there's a lot going on. And again, as Meredith has said, back in August, we thought maybe this would be more of a normal year. Or are we just going to kind of put that to the side for now?
I mean, Meredith and I haven't even talked about it, but that was always the goal that we were, especially once we knew that we had a principal change. That was always the goal that was probably the most cuttable. And I mean, I'm thinking at this point, given how overwhelmed everybody is.
Brian, I can just give you an update. So we have been working through a process of goal setting here at the high school, and we at our faculty meeting this week are going to be talking about school-wide goals as suggested by departments. We are aware of the fact that it, continues to exist as a board goal. I think that there's a lot of investment by the high school faculty in having this conversation and, looking into what some of the options might be. It was suggested by at least one department that be one of our goals. And so I think that, that is a conversation, to answer your question, Patrick, that is beginning here at the high school alongside, our other efforts.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Rich? Yeah, I mean, if there's the will and the capacity at the high school, that's great. I mean, I guess the only thing I'd add to that is part of that process was envisioned to be some, very broad values and priority setting. So that comes from the community as well as from any particular staff. So I just want to make sure that if we go ahead, that piece becomes part of it too.
I think that our new parent advisory group may be, one lever through which we could, move that conversation beyond the building and into the community.
Yep, some sort of a board workshop or public comment might be appropriate too, but obviously the staff needs to be a big piece of it too. But just want to make sure all the stakeholders get involved in that process if we do go ahead this year.
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, so any other questions on future agenda items? I mean, construction, going back to the goals, most of those are being acted on. Second public comment period. Any public comment? Leo.
Hey guys, how's it going? I have comments that maybe come across as questions, though I realize this isn't a question and answer session. I'm really just trying to stall so Mark can't go watch the Red Sox, but and I know he meant to say Red Sox, not Yankees. But first question or comment, I guess, is around pool testing. I think when we started the year, we thought we were going to have some comparisons to do with other local districts who are doing it differently. Although I think Herman, Hamden, and Brewer, I think they might have all changed their policies. So maybe we lost that opportunity. But the question is, do we believe that we're reducing sickness or even cases of COVID based on our masking and pool testing efforts as compared to districts that are not masking and doing pool testing? And if the answer is we don't know, I think the next question would be, how do we determine if these policies are working and if we need to adjust them? And I realize there are many parents out there that want to keep masks on kids indefinitely. But I will say that's not everyone feels that way. So I think our policy should be data driven. So that, again, understanding we're not answer what you want to answer. My other question is with regards to the vaccination clinics. And we talked about it tonight and it came out in an email, but the first question, are we really talking about vaccinating 5-year-olds? And if we are, will their parents be present? And will this be outside of the regular school day? Because I think that has the potential for some bad outcomes personally, but and I truly don't know if this is something that happens in school or if we're talking about a Saturday doing this. So I am curious, some type of answer there. If we have an answer, maybe we don't. Maybe it's just something you're looking at doing, but I think those are real considerations. And I guess that's it. Thank you. Thanks for all the work you're doing.
Thanks, Leo. Yeah, I mean, we try not to get into a back and forth, but just to be informative, you're right. We lost our comparison points locally because everybody switched to masks. So, which, you can say that says something or not, but the ones that switched, it was mostly because they were having to quarantine half the school and shutting down the school. So it's a little bit different issue from your question about health. I don't know of any local data, but there was a huge national study involving hundreds of schools that provided pretty strong evidence that there was less spread and less cases in schools that had mandatory mask policies. So that question has been looked at this fall, and there was a pretty decisive answer that came out of that.
You mind sharing it, Brian? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. And the vaccination clinics, I'm sure parents are required to give permission. I don't know if they're going to be personally present.
Right, we'll run it like we do our flu clinic, where people can sign up and they have to provide the consent form for their child to participate. And our clinic will run alongside whatever the FDA approval ages are for that. And we do have healthcare providers on site as part of the PCHC clinic and our own school nurse. So parents are certainly welcome to come if they want to be here to see what their child when that's happening. So that's the plan for that clinic, and very similar to how we ran the other clinic that we did with the age 12 and up, and how we run flu shot clinic.
Great. Any other public comments?
Thanks.
We'll go ahead and move on. Our next meeting is October 19th, 2 weeks from today at 6 p.m. in person and via Zoom. Any requests from the board for information or follow-up? Okay, seeing none, we're now moving into the phase where we have a couple of executive sessions. Just for people's convenience, we are not going to take any vote except to adjourn after these executive sessions. There's really, the entire rest of the public meeting is about 1 minute of voting to adjourn. If anybody wants to hang out in the waiting room and come back to watch us vote to adjourn, you can, but personally, it's up to you if you want to do that, but it's going to be pretty boring. So you're welcome to sign off if you don't want to watch us vote to adjourn.
I need to make a motion to move.
So I would make a motion to go into executive session under 1 MRSA 4056D, labor negotiations. Is there a second?
My second.
Okay, we'll go ahead and vote. Beth?
I just need, are we going to stay on here? I'm
Yeah, we're going to stay on here. We'll put people, if they're still here, in a waiting room.
okay, got it. Okay. I just wanted to make sure before I voted that I didn't just disappear. Aye.
Yep. Okay, yep, good clarification. Mark?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Jake?
Aye.
I also vote aye.
Rachel, yes, and I will stop recording. Are you stop recording? Yeah, so.